All right, so this assignment is image editing for the digital space. And just like as designers or any kind of creator or artist, a lot of us start with hand sketches and we draw, whether it's a pencil, pen, marker, whatever. That work is on a paper medium. So how do we take that paper medium and put it into a digital space? And then how do we edit it so that it's viewable in the digital space? So, if I have this picture of a drawing I did for a client, I wouldn't just send them this, right? I could, but it would be much better received and much better understood if I did just a little bit of editing. Increase the contrast, edit the white and the black balance, crop all this, and we'll get to that in just a second. But I guess we start out, how do we take photos of our images? And I will cut right to that right now. Okay, so right here what I'm doing is laying out my pictures flat and trying to align my camera as parallel to the photo as possible, while still trying to avoid the shadows that my arm and my body are making. You can definitely prevent this by using multiple light sources, but totally unnecessary. Just kind of back away from the photo just so you don't get those extra shadows. Let's get into the editing. So the better photos you take, the less editing work you're gonna have to do. So just keep that in mind when you're making drawings that will end up in some sort of digital space. And I would also keep in mind too, just how you're leaving marks on the paper. Anyway, now that we're in Photoshop, what we can do is, say this was aligned in portrait, but I want it in landscape, like this, just like this image. We would make sure that, first of all, layer is unlocked. Command T for rotate, and we can rotate whichever way we need. Holding the shift key while rotating will, you'll be locked to full degrees. So instead of 8.9, 15, 30, and so on. So what I'm going to do is just kind of move this up, enter C for crop, and then crop this probably to about there. Cool. So, and the image looks okay. Kind of low contrast. You get this pulpiness from the paper. So the first thing I'm going to do is adjust my levels. Now I will mention that, of course, you have all these other adjustment options: hue, saturation, brightness, curves, color balance, black and white, exposure, so on and so on and so on. Absolutely experiment with these. But if you take a good picture, then you will not have to use all these different adjustments. But then again, what's your aesthetic? If taking photos, you're not always in the ideal setting. But moving on, we're just going to adjust the levels, and you can do this through the adjustment panels or Command L. And in the levels, you have these little eyedroppers that are very important. This is your black point, your gray point or mid, and your white point. And you can go in and kind of like mess with the sliders here to see what it's going to look like. I totally, like, this totally works actually, but the easiest way is to select the eyedropper to the right. You see it has like a little white fill. This one has a gray fill inside, and then this one has a black fill inside. So select the white and just select where you think the whitest part is. And it will automatically adjust. So I might have to click a few different times. And actually that looks good. And then I'll kind of play with my sliders. I'm going to pull my gray up. Till it looks a little bit darker. Mess with my black. And it's all just kind of trial and error, just kind of seeing like what works, because, you know, of course, depending on if you're using pencil versus pen, what color pen, how deeply you make marks, you know, you're going to be doing different types of editing. It's not a one size fit all for editing. Okay, so this looks good. I wouldn't necessarily send this out looking like this. I'm going to clean it up a little bit more. So we're going to use the clone stamp. Where's clone stamp? Here we are. And with my correct layer selected, I'm going to hold Option just to get one of these like plain white backgrounds, and make sure my opacity is 100, and just kind of go in, and make sure that some of these like noticeable dots are gone, and just like fix a little bit of like the boo-boos on the page. Something like that. And you totally, whatever your aesthetic is, you know, you want it to be very sketchy, you want it to be very clean. I could spend an hour editing this. But yeah, that's like kind of the basics of cleaning it up. Next, what I would do is I'm going to realign these squares just so they're all aligned on the side. And you can either use your lasso tool or the marquee tool. Marquee is M, lasso is L. And I'm just going to marquee around this space. Press the V for the selection tool and just drag her down here. Command D to deselect, and then again going in with my marquee, select this guy, V for selection tool. I'm going to line them up and do Command T, size it up just a little bit, and then, you know, let's try a skew. See, he is kind of not straight up and down. And you know what? That looks good. Good enough. Again, marquee M tool, or marquee tool, hotkey M, V for selection, line them up, Command T, scale, looks pretty close, Command D for deselect, and you know, I have these transparent spots here. Easy fix, grab a new layer, put it underneath, G for gradient, boom. Make sure my drawing layer is selected. Move these guys up and then deselect. Cool, so yeah, I would also like to add some color to this. So I'm going to create a new layer. Let me just name these so it's all organized. So we'll do background, drawing, color pops. So I'm going to get my brush tool out with B. Pick, let's just pick a pink. And you know what, I'm going to make sure I am in RGB. Okay. RGB is for screens, and I will not be printing this out, but if I was printing this out, I would be in CMYK. And I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to fill in this arrow. And then use multiply, maybe lower my opacity. Maybe put a green here, just so the hand is kind of sticks out. And then maybe do like a blue. For this like little blanket texture I was doing. Just some ideas. You know, when you are drawing something like a user experience, it is definitely helpful to use pops of color so people can kind of like understand a little bit better what you're trying to convey. So I would highlight arrows or like hands, if you have hands using an object, light, and it just like looks a little bit more appealing and understandable. So we're just going to say that we're happy with this drawing, and I want to send it out off to a client. So I'm going to go in and check out the image size. And she's pretty big. I like to keep exports of images at the biggest size, or at the largest by 1000 pixels. So I see my width is my you know, the bigger size, because this is like a letter size, or a, you know, landscape letter. Let's scale it down to 1000. My resolution can stay the same. It doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be 300 because it is not for print. We're going to select OK. So it does feel, you know what, this does feel a little too small. We're going to undo that. I didn't like how pixelated it seemed, so maybe we'll turn this up to 300 ppi. with a width of 1000. Still didn't like that. Maybe we'll do 1500. Okay, you know what? That does look better to me. So we're gonna save this, and automatically it would want to save as a PSD file. I'm going to, so you have a couple options. You can save as a copy, you can export, quick export PNG. Let's go save a copy. We'll call it edited drawing. And you can export as PNG, GIF, TIFF. Yeah, lots of options, but let's keep it JPEG. Save. And this all looks good to me, so okay. And there we go. So that is, yeah, that's what we're doing.